Young Millionaire pretended to be poor to test her fiancé, but regretted it deeply. On a sunny afternoon in a large city, on the 20th floor of a building, in an elegant office with a breathtaking view, was Stephanie Martinez, a young 28-year-old businesswoman at the helm of a thriving tech company. Her desk was laden with performance charts and contracts, symbols of her success. Stephanie, with her meticulously styled brown hair and a finely tailored suit, looked thoughtfully at her computer screen. She had everything many would desire: success, financial independence, and a loving fiancé, Alex. But something deeply bothered her. Alex, a 30-year-old lawyer whom Stephanie was about to marry, had always been kind and thoughtful. However, Stephanie began to question Alex's sincerity after noticing certain inconsistencies in his stories and evasive behavior when the topic was money. One afternoon, after another day of work, Stephanie visited her father Charles at his home, where after a pleasant conversation about each other's day, she decided to open her heart. "Dad, can I talk to you about something that's been worrying me?" Stephanie asked as they walked through the garden at the house. "Of course, my daughter. What's bothering you?" Charles replied, looking at her with a concerned expression. Stephanie took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "It's Alex. I don't know if I can fully trust him. Some things aren't adding up, and I feel lost." Charles, an experienced businessman, was well acquainted with the uncertainties of his daughter's heart. He suggested a plan that might seem radical, but would reveal Alex's true nature. "How about we test his sincerity? We could pretend that your company is facing a financial crisis. His reaction might tell you a lot about his true intentions." Stephanie pondered the idea. She knew it was a risky game, but also understood that it was essential to enter into marriage with full confidence. "Let's do it, Dad. I need to know if I can trust him for the rest of my life." Thus the plan was in action. Stephanie was preparing to observe Alex under a new light, hoping that her journey to the altar would be marked not only by love, but also by truth and sincerity. After her decisive conversation with Charles, Stephanie dedicated herself to meticulously planning every detail of the scheme. In the silence of her office, she pondered the next steps. The idea was to create a critical yet controlled situation that would not put her real company at risk. The next morning, Stephanie called a meeting with her financial advisor and a small group of trusted executives within the company. She explained the need to simulate a financial crisis, emphasizing that it was a temporary and confidential measure intended to assess an important personal aspect. "I want it to look realistic, but without actual financial movements that might alarm investors or clients," Stephanie instructed. "We need documents that show a significant drop in revenue and an increase in debts, something that justifies genuine concern, but can be quickly debunked." Her financial advisor, a meticulous man named Mr. Lopez, nodded in understanding. "I can prepare some reports showing negative projections and balances that reflect large, unexpected expenditures. I'll use data that can be easily adjusted back to reality when necessary." Pleased with the plan in motion, Stephanie decided how she would present the situation to Alex. She would organize an intimate dinner, a setting that would provide the necessary seriousness for the subject and allow her to observe every nuance of his reaction. In the days that followed, Stephanie felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Each detail of the plan was repeatedly reviewed, ensuring everything appeared as real as possible. At the same time, she observed Alex in daily interactions, trying to discover any hint that might have gone unnoticed before. He remained the same, caring and attentive, but now every gesture was subject to Stephanie's scrutiny. Finally, on the night of the dinner, Stephanie's house was impeccably tidy, with candles lit creating a softly illuminated ambience and a playlist of classical music in the background. The menu consisted of dishes she knew were Alex's favorites, prepared by a chef hired especially for the occasion. When Alex arrived, he was wearing an elegant navy blue suit. His smile was warm and his manners impeccable as always. Stephanie felt a twinge of doubt about her plan, but remembered her father's words. She needed this certainty. "I'm so glad you're here," she said, greeting him with a kiss. "We need to talk about something important after dinner." Alex, sensing the seriousness in her voice, nodded. "Of course, Stephanie, whatever it is, we're in this together." During dinner, they talked about various things, but Stephanie's tension was palpable. With the main course served and the conversation becoming more intimate, she knew it was time to reveal the test that would define the future of their relationship. The atmosphere at the dinner became denser as the dishes were cleared away and the candles burned low. Stephanie took a sip of her wine, gathering the courage to start the most important conversation of the evening. "Alex, you know how grateful I am to have you in my life, especially in difficult times," Stephanie began, her voice slightly tremulous. "But I have something very serious to discuss with you, something that is directly impacting my company." Alex put his wine glass down on the table, his expression shifting from lightness to concern. "What's happening, Stephanie? How can I help?" She took a deep breath and looked him directly in the eyes. "My company is going through a severe financial crisis. Things have been getting worse over the past few months, and now we are on the brink of bankruptcy." Alex's expression was a mix of shock and concern. "Stephanie, that's terrible. But what exactly happened? I always had the impression that the company was doing well." "It's a long story. Investments that didn't work out, clients who have left us, and we haven't been able to recover." Stephanie lied, following the planned script. "I'm trying everything to save the situation, but it's like rowing against the tide." Alex reached his hand across the table, touching hers. "Stephanie, you're not alone in this. We're in this together, remember? We'll face this as a couple. Money is the least of it. The important thing is that we're together." Stephanie's heart tightened at his words. Part of her wished she could confess that it was all a test, but she knew she needed to carry on to see how far Alex would go with his support. "I didn't want to burden you with this, especially with the wedding coming up," she said, a tear escaping involuntarily. "But I didn't know who else to turn to. Alex, maybe you should think about this for a bit. I understand if this is too much for you." Alex squeezed her hand. "Stephanie, I love you, and this has nothing to do with money or the success of your company. I will support you no matter what happens." They spent the rest of the evening discussing possible solutions and strategies for the fictitious company on the brink of bankruptcy. Alex showed himself to be interested and proactive, offering not just emotional support, but also trying to think of practical solutions. After Alex left, Stephanie sat alone in the dining room, now only dimly lit by the soft glow of candles. She felt torn between admiration for Alex's stance and guilt for deceiving someone who clearly loved her. Charles called later that night to find out how things had gone. "He was incredible, Dad," she confessed. "He really seemed sincere. I'm starting to feel bad for doubting him." "That's good, Stephanie, but remember, the goal is to be absolutely sure. Let's see how things evolve from here." Stephanie agreed, knowing the test was not yet over. As she prepared for bed, she pondered the complexity of human emotions and how love could be tested in such unexpected ways. The journey to discover the truth about Alex was far from over. In the days following the revealing dinner, Stephanie felt an increasing need to fully understand Alex's character. Despite his words of support, she knew it was crucial to observe his daily actions to see if they matched the promises made that night. With this in mind, Stephanie decided to take a more direct step. She hired a private detective to discreetly follow Alex, to learn more about his life outside the context of their relationship. The detective, Mr. Menezes, came highly recommended by a trusted friend of her father's. He was a discreet man with an impeccable track record in covert investigations. "I want to know about his daily routine, who he meets, how he spends his time," Stephanie explained to Mr. Menezes during a meeting in a discreet cafe. "And most importantly, I want to know if he talks about our situation with anyone and how he talks about it." Mr. Menezes nodded, jotting down details in his notebook. "I'll start following him immediately. I'll provide regular updates on my findings." In the first few days of investigation, Mr. Menezes' reports were quite mundane. Alex went to work, met with colleagues for business lunches, and occasionally visited a local cafe in the afternoon. Nothing out of the ordinary, but Stephanie maintained vigilance. It was only a week later that Mr. Menezes brought information that surprised Stephanie. "I discovered that he makes regular visits to a house in a modest neighborhood of the city. He seems to be providing financial support to a family there." Intrigued, Stephanie requested more details. What Mr. Menezes discovered next was revealing. The house belonged to Alex's parents, who lived in modest conditions and had been through serious financial difficulties in recent years. Their business had failed, and they were almost entirely dependent on Alex's financial support to survive. Stephanie felt a mix of emotions upon receiving this news. On one hand, she was relieved and impressed by Alex's generosity and humility, qualities he had never mentioned or flaunted. On the other hand, she wondered why he had never shared these aspects of his life with her. With this new information, Stephanie reflected on the next step. It was clear that Alex had deep responsibilities and a character that valued family above all else. This knowledge added a new dimension to her assessment of him, one that required understanding and perhaps an open conversation about their lives and futures. She decided it was time to discuss openly with Alex, not just about her investigation, but also about the importance of sharing such aspects of their lives if they truly planned to build a future together. With these thoughts, Stephanie scheduled a meeting with Alex, preparing herself for one of the most significant conversations of their relationship. The truth about the test still remained hidden, but the truths about themselves were about to be revealed. After Detective Menezes' revelations, Stephanie found herself in a state of deep reflection. The discoveries about Alex not only surprised her, but also made her question the integrity of her own plan. She was facing a man who secretly supported his financially struggling parents, demonstrating a generosity and altruism she had not fully appreciated before. Sitting in her office, watching the rain beat against the windows, Stephanie pondered her actions. The simulation of her company's bankruptcy, initially conceived as a test of sincerity, now seemed like a manipulation that put her own morality in question. "Am I really doing the right thing?" Stephanie wondered, as her hands trembled slightly around a still hot cup of coffee. Doubt was a constant companion, but now accompanied by a dose of guilt. She decided to seek advice from her father, Charles, hoping he could offer some clarity. Charles listened attentively as she explained her findings and her growing hesitations. "Stephanie, you started this with a pure intention, to ensure that you were making the right choice for your future," Charles said, his voice calm and thoughtful. "But sometimes the methods we choose to protect our hearts can lead us down paths that question our own integrity." "I know, Dad, but what should I do now? How can I confront Alex with the truth without ruining everything we've built so far?" Charles suggested that Stephanie consider revealing the whole truth to Alex, but in a way that demonstrated her vulnerability and remorse for the test. "Be honest with him, Stephanie. Honesty may not be the easiest path, but it's the only one that can lead to a truly strong and transparent relationship, Charles advised. Strengthened by her father's support, Stephanie arranged to meet Alex in a quiet park, a place that had always been special to them. She planned to reveal everything about the test, her findings about him, and most crucially, her growing admiration for his dedication to his family. On the day of the meeting, the park was serene, with autumn leaves coloring the path. Alex arrived with a smile, but quickly noticed the seriousness on Stephanie's face. "Stephanie, what's going on? You seem worried," said Alex, his voice full of concern. Stephanie took a deep breath, the words heavy in her mind. "Alex, there's something I need to tell you. Something important about me, about us." She started by talking about the company and the supposed state of bankruptcy. She described her initial fear about his intentions and how that led her to test the foundation of their relationship. With each word, she carefully watched Alex's reaction, waiting for any sign of anger or disappointment. As she finished, tears were evident in her eyes, a clear sign of the emotional strain this confession was causing her. "Alex, I've discovered a lot about you in this process, about your generosity and the way you care for your parents, and I deeply regret having doubted you, even for a moment." The silence that followed seemed to stretch on indefinitely as Alex processed the revelations. Stephanie waited, her heart pounding for his response, knowing that this moment could define the future of their relationship. The silence that hung between Stephanie and Alex in the park was almost palpable. Alex, with a look of surprise and confusion, finally broke the silence. "Stephanie, I don't know what to say. Did you really do all this to test my sincerity?" "Yes," Stephanie confessed, looking down, feeling the weight of each word. "I was afraid of getting hurt, of making a mistake that I couldn't fix. But now, seeing everything you do, I realize how wrong I was." Alex took a moment to absorb everything. "I understand your fears, Stephanie, and I wish you had come to talk to me, but I also see the courage it took for you to tell me all this now. That's not easy." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I love you, Stephanie. That hasn't changed, but we need to rebuild trust between us. That will take time." Stephanie felt a mix of relief and fear. Relief that Alex hadn't immediately rejected her, and fear of the uncertain future. "I want to do this, Alex. I want to do whatever it takes to rebuild our trust." Determined to share everything with her father, Stephanie later met with Charles that day. She recounted her conversation with Alex, every detail and every pause, seeking advice and comfort. Charles listened intently, his expression a mix of concern and pride. "You did the right thing, Stephanie. Honesty is the foundation of any lasting relationship. And now, Alex has shown that he's willing to work on this with you. That says a lot about him too." "Thank you, Dad. I really hope we can get through this together. Alex is more than I expected, and I want to give him the chance he deserves," said Stephanie, feeling a bit more hopeful. Charles placed his hand on his daughter's shoulder. "You both have a journey ahead, but I believe you are both strong enough to get through this. And remember, I'm here for whatever you need." Reassured by her father's words, Stephanie spent the following days reflecting on how she could strengthen her relationship with Alex. She knew it would take actions, not just words, to show her commitment. So she decided to organize a small event, an appreciation night, where she could publicly express her respect and love for Alex, taking an important step in rebuilding their trust. Planning the event meticulously, Stephanie was determined to make this night a new beginning for them. Meanwhile, Alex, on his own journey of reflection, considered ways to open up more about his life and challenges, realizing that the path to a deep and meaningful relationship was paved with transparency and vulnerability. Stephanie fervently dedicated herself to organizing the special event for Alex. She wanted it to be an unforgettable night, a symbol of her renewed commitment, and a milestone in rebuilding their trust. The chosen venue was an elegant ballroom with a spectacular view of the city, decorated with delicate flowers and soft lights to create a welcoming and intimate atmosphere. As the preparations advanced, Stephanie felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. She planned every detail, from selecting a gourmet menu to choosing a live jazz band to provide background music. Additionally, she prepared a heartfelt speech in which she intended to share her reflections and feelings with Alex and the special guests, close friends, and family. On the big day, as guests arrived and were greeted with champagne and warm smiles, Alex was still unaware of the full purpose of the evening. He knew Stephanie had planned something, but the extent of her organization and the meaning behind it was still a surprise to him. When all the guests had arrived and were seated, Stephanie took the center of the ballroom, her heart pounding with the anticipation of what was to come. Alex looked at her, clearly touched by the atmosphere and the attention. "Good evening, everyone," Stephanie began, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions. "I greatly appreciate your presence here on this special night. Each one of you represents an important part of my life and Alex's life." She paused, seeking Alex's eyes, which encouraged her to continue. "This night is about truth, about vulnerability, and about how true love is built on these foundations. Recently, I went through a period of doubt and fear, and unfortunately, I let those feelings guide my actions." Stephanie continued, explaining the sincerity test she had imposed on Alex and how her discoveries about his character, especially his silent dedication to his parents, made her realize the error of her ways. "I've learned that love, true love, is based on trust and transparency. Alex, you showed me this with your integrity and your strength, even in the face of my doubts." Turning to Alex, she held his hands. "I am deeply sorry for having doubted you, and I am here in front of our friends and family to say that I am committed to building a future based on true trust." Alex's eyes were moist, and he squeezed Stephanie's hands in response. "Stephanie, your honesty today means everything to me. Let's rebuild together, step by step." The night proceeded with celebrations, laughter, and music. But the highlight was Stephanie and Alex's dance. As they danced, they whispered promises of a shared future, a partnership strengthened by their trials. With the renewal of their trust and commitment, Stephanie and Alex plunged into wedding preparations with renewed energy and a deep appreciation for their relationship. They decided that the ceremony would be a celebration not just of their love, but also of their journey through adversity. The chosen venue for the wedding was a charming farm on the outskirts of the city, known for its beautiful gardens and a spacious reception area that opened up to hillside views. Stephanie had always dreamed of an outdoor wedding, and this place seemed perfect to symbolize their new beginning. In the months leading up to the big day, Stephanie and Alex worked together on every detail. They carefully chose each vendor, from the florist who would adorn the space with arrangements of wildflowers and elegant blooms, to the chef who would prepare a feast reflecting their tastes and culinary heritage. Alex, showing his renewed commitment, made it a point to be involved in all the decisions, many of which focused on creating a memorable experience for the guests, many of whom had been witnesses to their reaffirmed commitment. He also planned a special surprise for Stephanie, something he knew she would love, but kept it a secret as a small gesture of his love and creativity. As the wedding day approached, Stephanie felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had regular sessions with her stylist to ensure her wedding dress was perfect. The dress, an elegant silk design with lace details, was everything she had dreamed of, and each fitting reminded her of how far they had come. Moreover, Stephanie made sure to include small personal touches throughout the event. She decided that each table at the reception would have a small handwritten note from her, expressing her gratitude for the guests' presence and support over the years. The week of the wedding was a whirlwind of activity. Family and friends began arriving from various parts of the country, and Stephanie and Alex organized a small welcome event, taking the opportunity to spend time with each of their guests and share their happiness. Finally, on the eve of the wedding, while making the final preparations, Stephanie and Alex exchanged personal vows in private. A moment just for them, promising each other that regardless of future challenges, they would face everything together with love and trust. This private moment strengthened their bond and prepared them for the following day when they would officially unite in front of all their friends and family, ready to begin their life together with full hearts and renewed promises. The wedding day of Stephanie and Alex dawned clear and sunny, with a cloudless blue sky that seemed to bless the union that was about to be celebrated. The farm's gardens were stunning, with flowers in full bloom and the vibrant green of the leaves, creating a perfect backdrop for the event. From early on, the farm was a whirlwind of activity. Decorators, florists, and event organizers moved with quiet efficiency, adjusting every detail so that both the ceremony and reception would be flawless. Meanwhile, in a suite specially prepared for her at the farm, Stephanie was getting ready for the most important day of her life. Surrounded by her bridesmaids, which included longtime friends and her younger sister, Stephanie was dressing in her wedding gown. The silk fabric fell perfectly, and the lace details subtly shimmered in the sunlight filtering through the window. As she was helped into her dress, the reflection in the mirror showed a radiant woman, although her eyes revealed the emotion and magnitude of the day. "Just as you planned, Stephanie. You look stunning," said her sister, adjusting a stray strand of Stephanie's hair. "Thank you," replied Stephanie, her smile lighting up the room. "I couldn't have gotten here without all of you." While Stephanie was getting ready, Alex was also preparing in another part of the farm, accompanied by his best man and close friends. Dressed in an elegant suit that complemented Stephanie's gown, he adjusted his tie in the mirror, his excitement and a healthy nervousness evident in his movements. "Ready for the big moment?" asked his best friend, playfully slapping him on the shoulder. "As ready as I'll ever be," replied Alex, with a sparkle of happiness in his eyes. The ceremony was scheduled for noon, and guests began to gather in the gardens, where chairs were arranged in a semicircle around a floral arch under which Stephanie and Alex would make their vows. Soft music blended with the sound of birds, creating an almost magical atmosphere. When the time came, Stephanie walked down the aisle formed by the chairs, her father by her side. All eyes were on her, but her focus was on the man waiting for her at the end of the path. Alex looked at Stephanie approaching, and his expression of love and admiration was everything she needed to see. The words exchanged during the vows were deep and heartfelt, with promises of love, respect, and support. When they were finally declared husband and wife, the kiss they shared was applauded by everyone present, sealing the commitment they had renewed and strengthened. The reception that followed was a joyful celebration of Stephanie and Alex's union. Amid laughter, dancing, and a delicious feast, the newlyweds mingled with guests, thanking each one for being part of their special day and their lives. The surprise Alex had prepared turned out to be a serenade he sang for Stephanie, a love song that moved everyone. As the day turned into night, and the stars began to shine over the farm, Stephanie and Alex felt grateful and fulfilled, knowing that every choice they had made had led them to that perfect moment. And as the party continued, both knew they were ready to start their new life together, filled with love. As the last guests left the farm under the starry sky, Stephanie and Alex, now husband and wife, shared a quiet moment, reflecting on the day's events and the months that had led up to it. They were exhausted but overwhelmed by a profound and gratifying happiness. In the days that followed, while enjoying their honeymoon on a secluded beach, they had time to contemplate the future and discuss their dreams and plans. Alex talked about his desire to continue supporting his parents, now with Stephanie's help, and together they planned ways to revitalize Alex's parents' failed business, turning it into a sustainable venture. Stephanie, in turn, was eager to expand her business, but now with a new perspective on balancing personal and professional life. She wanted to ensure that her marriage and family always came first, a commitment she and Alex sealed together. When they returned from their honeymoon, reality awaited them, but they felt ready to face it hand in hand. The first order of business was to visit Alex's parents. Charles, Stephanie's father, joined them, bringing not only congratulations, but also a detailed plan to help in the recovery of Alex's parents' business. "This is a new beginning for all of us," said Charles, as they discussed strategies in the living room of Alex's parents' home. "We are not only celebrating the love of Stephanie and Alex, but also the resilience and the ability to turn things around." Alex's parents, moved and grateful, expressed their immense gratitude. They were visibly relieved and optimistic about the future, knowing they were no longer alone in their struggles. In the following months, Alex and Stephanie worked tirelessly. Alex actively involved himself in restructuring his parents' company, applying his legal and business knowledge, while Stephanie looked for ways to integrate the operations of the revitalized company with her own, creating synergies that benefited both parties. Married life brought its own challenges, but each obstacle was faced with the same determination that had led them to the altar. They learned each day the importance of communication, patience, and perseverance. Eventually, Alex's parents' company began to show signs of recovery, thanks to Alex's dedication and the financial and strategic support from Stephanie and Charles. Stephanie and Alex, reflecting on their journey, often recalled the test that Stephanie had imposed and how it had shaped their relationship. They did not regret the trials, as each one contributed to the deepening of their commitment and love. As they planned a party to celebrate their first wedding anniversary and the recovery of the company, both were incredibly grateful for the strength they found in each other and in the family ties they had strengthened. Life together was just beginning, and they were eager to see what the future held, certain that whatever happened, they would face it together with love and trust. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Until the next story.